And some of these things are pretty cool. So first one's the powerful wind charge. Doesn't always work, but most of the time, as you can see here, and it just boosts me up into the air pretty highly. And the best thing about it is that it also works on mobs. That wasn't too high. That's a different story. Okay, so for this command block, for this command creation, sorry, you're gonna need to save a structure using a structure block. Alright, you get one by typing /give ls structure underscore block into the chat. Then you're gonna set it to these parameters here, so x size 1, y size 1, z size 1 and y offset 1. And now you need this command block here that teleports all the wind charge projectiles into the structure here. So what you want to do now is just throw some of these in here. Alright, that's enough. Then go in the save mode within the structure block, press save, but before you're also going to need to type wind underscore charge as the name. And then you can well, break this command block or just deactivate it, doesn't matter. So the first actual command block that's required for the wind charges to work the way intended, you're gonna have this input, and basically what it does is it tests if the block 0.5 blocks below the wind charge is air, and if it's not, then it loads the structure which is created. Alright, this is unconditional, that's important. And then it kills all of the wind charges. Why does it kill them? Well, because that triggers all of the effects at once. Okay, and for the second row of commands here, well, it's pretty much the same. This causes the wind charge to basically test if an entity is nearby, and if that's the case, it loads the structure and then also kills all of the other wind charge projectiles. And well, what we just did was basically the hardest part of this tutorial, even though it was really simple. So next we've got the Aimbot command, which I guess you can already anticipate what it does. I'm gonna show you anyway. Yeah, it's basically wind charge that never misses its target. Alright, and that has all of the wind charges teleport 0.5 blocks toward the nearest entity that's not a player, not a wind charge, or at least not the same wind charge, within a range of 7 blocks. That's really all it does. For the next command, I'm gonna have to stay away from the command box to not break the levels and such. It's a really explosive wind charge. I think you can already guess what it does. So yeah, you've seen what it does, but I think you can guess how it works. It again has all of the wind charges test for the block below them, and if it's not air, the wind charge runs a command that summons an ender crystal that's exploding at its current position. As far as I can tell, you all like Warden stuff, so I've made a Warden version of the wind charge. Yeah, basically just applies much damage and has this nice particle and sound effect. So first, each wind charge runs this command that causes it to display a particle, and yeah, that particle is the sonic explosion particle, which you probably already know if you like Warden stuff, as I just anticipated. Okay, then the next command here is used to has the wind charges damage entities that are nearby that are not players and not the wind charge itself. That's 20 magic damage a tick, and maybe that's a bit much. If you want it to be actually survivable, then probably you should lower this. And yeah, last but not least, we've got the sound, and I don't think I need to say anymore. It just takes the wind charge again and then has it play a sound, which is this mob that wanted a death sound, which I think sounds pretty much okay. And it plays the sound to each player, to the nearest player within a range of 2 blocks. Lastly, this magnet command here is also pretty funny. It's not like really strong or something, but it takes the closest entity and then teleports it above itself. Yeah, doesn't really do any damage though. Or boost things high up in the air. Okay, so this executes a command, adds all wind charges, and this command is teleporting the closest entity that matches these conditions here above the wind charge. And that's about this command block. So first of all, we've got the throwable armadillos. So see, as soon as an armadillo is close, I start to raise my arms kind of. And I can throw the armadillos and then they explode. Yeah, this is pretty much the whole deal. Next we've got something else about armadillos. So this time armadillos somehow turn aggressive. They're not the smartest, and the AI that moves them isn't really great. Alright, I can stay in survival mode for this next showcase. This breeze here is a pacifist breeze and cannot throw any wind charge projectiles. So next we've got something completely different, because now these wind charges here will instantly hit the target. And by target I mean the closest entity that's not a wind charge, not player. Generally that just is a mob. And I think I excluded armor stance. So, and last but not least, we have something else about wind charges. You see, these wind charges here just kind of burn, and I like these particles and wanted to implement them in some way. That's why I did this mostly. And yeah, they also set the ground aflame. Well, they are the best friends of trees apparently. And yeah, let's just get into the commands real quick. You see, this really isn't much of a big deal. Most of these are pretty simple. Just the throwing thing, it's a bit more complex, but I think you guys should be able to live with that. And if you don't want to type all of this on your own, you can check out my Patreon. The structure files will be there as always. Great, so I don't want to start with the most complex one. So let's just start with the fire wind charge and then move away up there. So yeah, this is the particle command. And it's actually a particle added in 1.21. And it's just executed at the wind charge's position. This shouldn't really be much of a big deal. And then this is required to set the ground flame. It also executes a command at the wind charges and then has them fill the air with fire. And really that's pretty much everything you need to know about this. So now the instant wind charge is also extremely simple. Actually, I don't need to flick the lever because I showed you already. It really simply takes the wind charges and then has them teleport toward the closest entity that's not a mob. That is a mob, but not an armor stand, because this might interfere with some other command creations of yours if you want to implement this in some way. And yeah, it doesn't target players. Well, yet again, I have something really simple. The pacifist breeze is even easier, I guess. It really just kills all of the breeze wind charge projectiles, so all of the wind charges that are shot by breezes. And that causes the particles to still appear, but it doesn't really have any other effect. If you don't want the particles even, you can change this to be a teleport command that teleports them, so the breeze wind charge projectiles, into the void, and then you're also rid of the particles. The aggressive armadillo requires also about 2 command blocks, and then we can get into the real stuff. So yeah, actually you're gonna have to add the tag aggressive to armadillos for this to work. And yep, this pretty much just makes armadillos with the tag aggressive run toward the closest player, and they can't fly because of this section here. This unless block tilla 0.75 and yeah, also can't get through walls, and at a certain distance the armadillos are just gonna stop teleporting further. Alright, and then this is used for damage. This is the amount of damage applied. Of course, the armadillo is the one doing the damage. This is why I also need the S, execute syntax. And yeah, we can move on. Alright, so I want to explain some of this to you before we get into the commands. The reason why this is rather complex, at least compared to these few command blocks, is that I don't really just take the armadillos as entities that execute some stuff. but instead I am using a boat to kind of simulate a projectile. Hence, some of these command blocks are really just copies of other command blocks, where you can see within these chains here, simply to make them execute more often. And of course, I also need some command blocks for the armadillo itself, and for the animations the player does and so on. But yeah, we can get into the commands, I guess. Just wanted to get this out of the way before I talk about the commands. Good. Each player tests for an armadillo within a range of 5 blocks, and if this armadillo is actually there, then the player runs an animation command on themselves. And you can change this animation to whatever you want, but I didn't find any one that was more fitting with the short time I spent researching on this. And then the closest armadillo, well, not the closest, actually an armadillo within a range of 1 block gets the tag throw added. So let's move on to the picking up part. Yeah, this was the right command block, good. And oh, just before I forget it, this one has a delay ticks of 2. That should be implemented. Yeah, okay. So yeah, this tests if the player isn't sneaking, because if the player is sneaking, you obviously want the armadillo to be thrown. And if that is the case, then the armadillo is just really teleported above the player's head. And again, this only is the case if the target doesn't have the tag thrown. By target I mean the armadillo. And the tag thrown isn't the tag throw, as you can see here. But we're gonna talk about this in a second. Every armadillo with the tag throw also is always rolled up, because otherwise it won't look as nice. And now we can actually move on to adding the tag thrown. Okay, so now if the player is sneaking, the player gets the tag throwing, and we can move on. Then the player with the tag throwing, which indicates that the player is currently throwing the armadillo, adds the tag thrown to the armadillo they're holding. The player also plays a sound to all the nearby players, including themselves. And this is again a 1.21 sound, just in case you care, which I don't think is very likely. Okay, then this summons a boat that has the player's rotation in the sky, 100 blocks above the players, so no one sees it. And then the boat gets tagged armadillo, and this just really implies that it is a boat that is meant to move the armadillo and just act as a projectile, because boats can't have names, as far as I know at least. And then the player also, in the end, gets to remove the tag throwing, so it is indicated that they're not throwing the armadillo any longer. Now I think this will be where we will get some more repetitive stuff. Yes, first this just moves the armadillo itself below the boat, and then the boat always teleports, taking the armadillo with itself. Yeah, this really is just where the replication starts. You need this command a total of 3 times. This really just tests if the armadillo is colliding with any block, and then explodes the armadillo. In case the block is something like water, where the armadillo would get decreased damage from the explosion, then this command comes into play and just kills the armadillo itself. And in the end, the boat is also killed, because obviously the boat shouldn't be floating further. At some point, it probably would get on anyone's nerves. Well, yeah, let's just get started with the breeze sword. This only works in survival, and this is what it does whenever you hit with it. you launch all of the enemies into the air which are nearby. Okay, it's fairly simple. You see, it's just 4 command blocks. So first it tests if the player has a diamond sword in the main hand slot, and if that diamond sword has a data value of 1, that means that it has lost 1 durability, indicating you've used it to hit something. And then it runs this new pretty cool particle command. Okay, then it's tested for the same things, and all mobs nearby get levitation. If you want the levitation to, I don't know, be not so strong or maybe even stronger, then you can adjust this number here as you like. This is just the sound, nothing more, and again tests for the same things. And then you get your undamaged diamond sword back, and thus you can use it again infinitely often. Alright, let's move on with the strong mace. As you might know, this weapon's damage scales with the amount of blocks fallen before the hit. So, now actually, let me use an iron golem to demonstrate. I've made this effect a bit better. Yeah, it's just a bit better. Basically, you get strength when you're in the air. So, the command tests if you have a mace in your main hand slot, and then if the block 3 blocks below you is air, and if all of these requirements are met, it gives you a strength effect with an amplifier of 51. To make this mace weaker, you can decrease this number. I think you don't need to make it stronger, but pretty much should already one-hit everything in the game, at least if it's unmodified. And let's just move on. The next one is really simple, and it's just more of a visual effect. It doesn't really do anything, but it makes these wind charges a bit more spectacular regarding the looks. And as you might have guessed, it just takes all of these wind charge projectiles, actually wind charges, but the ID is wind charge projectile, and then has them run a particle command, which is this wind explosion emitter particle. But nothing more to add, I guess. 2 more items to go. So this is the wind rod. It will just knocks back enemies within a certain range, and that's all it does. It executes a command at each fishing hook if the block 0.1 blocks below is not air, so that means pretty much if it's colliding with the ground. And the command that's run is just this particle command at first. You already know this particle from the command before. And then it also has all of the fishing hooks run a command that plays a sound, which is this sound of a breeze mob when shooting. And in the end, it just teleports the entities back a bit, including itself. That's why it basically just kills itself. So in the end, we've got this curse left here. So you see, when I'm close to any mob, while holding this item here, they get cursed, which is indicated by these particles. And when I stop holding it, or remove myself from the mobs, then they just get a really strong wither effect. Nah, actually it's a damage command, doesn't matter. Whatever they die, that's basically just the only thing that truly matters. Okay, it also again tests if the players have trial keys, and if that's the case, it causes them to run a command that applies the tech curse to nearby enemies. Entities, even not only enemies. Then this plays this little sound here. This command is unconditional, that's important. Every entity with a tag cursed also executes this particle command. I think this is a pretty cool particle. I'm gonna use this more often in the future. And then this doesn't matter if you put it on chain or repeat. Yeah, it's unconditional, that's what I wanted to say. This just causes all of the entities with the tag cursed to damage themselves by 5 damage. That's the same type of damage the wither effect applies to you, and they only damage themselves if there's no player with a trial key in the main hand slot nearby.